Hi friends, how are ya? Welcome back to my channel for another gluten-free related video. First, I just want to call out, if you've been to my channel before, you might recognize that I'm in a new spot. I thought it'd be fun to rent a little filming situation to have an interesting background, but I'm on a very busy road. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Michelle. I have celiac disease and I also have my degree in nutrition, coincidentally. Not so coincidentally, I actually went to school for nutrition after being diagnosed because I wanted to learn as much as possible about keeping my body safe and healthy through food. And so I wanted to do a little second video of my Living Gluten-Free series about how gluten hides, specifically in dishes and things to look out for if you are ordering at a restaurant. My favorite hobby is going out to eating at different restaurants. And there's a lot of very sneaky ways that gluten can be hidden in the dishes and make you sick. So I've dedicated a lot of time to learning the tips and tricks that help me feel safe eating out, so I know what to ask for, what dishes to just avoid because I don't want to take the risk, and little ingredients that are maybe prepared in a way that you don't think would be unsafe, but it's good to know if you have a gluten allergy, are celiac, or strictly avoiding it for some other reason. So without further ado, these are my tips of the ways that gluten sneakily hides in restaurants. First, let's start pretty simple. Good chance you already know this, but if a food is fried, there's a good chance it could be in a shared fryer. Let's take French fries as an example. Potatoes themselves, they're gluten-free, so long as they're not thrown in a batter or any sort of flour. French fries are normally gluten-free in nature, but a lot of restaurants don't have the space and the budget to be able to afford two separate fryers. So there's a pretty good chance that your French fries are gonna be in the exact same oil as the chicken tenders and the onion rings, therefore making them no longer safely gluten-free to eat. Same thing goes actually with tortilla chips in restaurants. If a restaurant is cool enough to make their own tortilla chips in-house, should be a perk, but that usually means they fry them in-house and maybe they also fry some gluten things in the exact same fryer. So if anything is fried, I always ask my server, hey, is there anything on this dish that is fried in a shared fryer with gluten dishes? Sometimes they get it, sometimes you have to rephrase the question a time or two. But sometimes some restaurants are actually, yeah, we have a whole separate fryer to keep it safely gluten-free for our French fries and whatever else. So just always ask that. Second, soy sauce. Soy sauce is the bane of my existence because it is so close to being gluten-free, but it's not, and it hides in so many different things. It hides in marinades, it hides in so many different Asian cuisines. It's hidden, and it's sticky, and it's not something that people typically think about when they're trying to think through gluten-free. They'll think through oh, is there any flour? Is there any bread? They won't think, is there any soy sauce? For that reason, unless an Asian cuisine restaurant labels gluten-free, I take the L and I say it's probably not worth the risk. Soy sauce is so likely to be hidden. I will say Thai food is the one Asian cuisine that I typically find has the least amount of soy sauce in their dishes, so that's something to know. But also, as this increases in popularity, more and more Asian cuisine restaurants are labeling gluten-free, so there's still options out there, but just be wary of soy sauce. Third is ground meat. This is not as common in hamburger patties, more so in meatballs and meatloaf and things of the sort, but a lot of recipes have you add bread or breadcrumbs or flour to hold those types of ground meat together. So I just clarify, I typically personally stay away from meatballs and meatloaf because that is just so common, but even if I'm ordering a burger at a restaurant, I will just confirm, is that patty just meat, 100% meat, nothing holding it, binding it together before I order on a gluten-free bun or lettuce wrap or whatever I'm doing to be able to eat that burger. Fourth, this is a sneaky little tip that I did not learn until I actually worked in a restaurant. That's another thing that I did in my kind of trying to learn as much as possible, as I was a line cook at a pretty fancy restaurant in LA. I was the only female in the kitchen, and I just wanted to learn as much as possible. Something that restaurants sneakily do to get that gorgeous golden sear on meats usually is they'll lightly dust the meat with flour because that flour will caramelize and give that kind of, the golden crust on a piece of meat that just looks so delicious. So I just double check, even if you're ordering something simple like a steak or a fish, say that's not dusted in flour, right? I just need to make sure this is safely gluten-free and that there's no flour on this at all. Tip number 5, this is something that I had to think through literally yesterday. I went to a diner with friends for breakfast and I was reading through the menu and there was nothing I could eat besides a side of fruit. But I saw oatmeal and I was like, oh, oatmeal, but no. I do not order oatmeal at restaurants because you may or may not know, not all oats are certified gluten-free. Sometimes they're just processed in a way to where I believe they're dusted in flour to keep them from sticking. I'm not sure if there's other ways in the facilities to where people package oats for oatmeal that they make it not gluten-free, but it is surprisingly hard to find certified gluten-free oats. So even if you're at a restaurant and there's oatmeal, there's a small chance it's gluten-free, but there's a large chance that it is not safe if you are celiac. So I just stay away from oats and oatmeal altogether unless someone says this is certified gluten-free. Tip number 6 is beer. And if you've been gluten-free for a while, you're like, of course, duh, beer, obviously not gluten-free. It is made from barley. I bring this up because people love to use beer in recipes. I'm a Texas girl, Texas born and bred. I don't know what it is, but people love to marinate meats in a mixture that has beer, sometimes also soy sauce, sometimes both. So you'll see like a beer battered whatever, even if it's like a tempura batter that would be gluten-free, maybe it has beer in it. Or you'll see like a beer infused dip, or even queso, or all sorts of things. So just be mindful of any dish that could possibly have beer in it. Question number 7, does it start with a roux? This is just a good thing to ask and keep in mind, especially with sauces, dressings, soups, gravy. Obviously, gravy is just basically only gluten, but a lot of things are started with a roux. If you're a Texan like me, you might also love chips and queso. Sometimes people start their queso with a roux. And what a roux is it's basically a fat and flour mixed together. They make it a little paste and they start off a soup or a sauce with that because that will keep it thick. I just always ask if I'm ordering a soup, is that made with a roux? Does the chef start with a roux? I need this to be strictly gluten-free. Or if there's just a thick sauce in general, I'll stay away from it just to be safe and I will just use olive oil on my salad. Tip number 8, pasta water. Of course, most traditional pastas are made with wheat flour and are not gluten-free, but some restaurants offer gluten-free pasta, which is awesome. Sometimes kitchens will have one big pot of boiling water just constantly going, and it makes sense. And what they do is they have this little mesh thing with the pasta in it that they'll dip into the water, pull out, serve it up so that they don't have to wait for water to boil every single time someone orders pasta. But if you're ordering a gluten-free pasta, you want to make sure that they're not putting your gluten-free pasta into that same big pot of boiling gluten water. That's just something I always double check, just to be safe. Tip number 9, pizza. I would say, at least in the area that I live, over half the pizza spots offer gluten-free pizza nowadays, and I'm so thankful. But I did recently get glutened from pizza because some restaurants are smart and they will use a little metal tray underneath a gluten-free pizza to put it in the pizza oven and keep it from contact with the actual bottom of the oven. And some places don't. And of course, to keep pizzas from sticking, they'll flour the pizza oven so they can move them around and shimmy them and whatever. And I got glutened recently from a gluten-free pizza because it was just placed directly onto the pizza oven instead of cooked on its own tray. So that's something that I just clarify now. Another good way to tell is if you look at the bottom of your pizza and there's just some kind of charred flour on the bottom, that means it probably was just put directly onto the stone, the pizza oven, instead of on its own tray. And that made me so sick once. So that's just another thing to double check. Tip number 10. Did you know that there's something called malt vinegar? And it is not gluten-free because it is made from malt, barley, gluten. It's unfortunate. So even things like a vinaigrette, a pickle, a sauerkraut, pickled things that have vinegars, I just always double check it doesn't have malt vinegar, or I'll just, pickle on the side, which is hard because my nickname is literally Mickle Pickle. I'm German, sauerkraut all day. Chances are slim that they use malt vinegar. I feel like it's not super common, but it's just not a risk I am personally willing to take. So that's something I always double check too. And I know that one is especially annoying because it's not glaringly obvious what things could be in a vinegar. Number 11. Imitation crab, fake crab, Crab with a K. Always check the sushi rice though, because there can be things like soy sauce or malt vinegar in the sushi rice. But you know, a lot of times if you get simple sushi like a salmon nigiri where it's salmon and rice, bring your own tamari, safe to eat. But crab, imitation crab, if you get a California roll and it's not real crab, it is not gluten-free. Imitation crab is literally gluten. That's like the first ingredient is gluten. So just be wary. If you're going out to get sushi, ask all the questions and upcharge for the real crab if you're getting a California roll. Number 12, some sausage. I just stay away from sausage in general unless I buy it at the store and can read the label, because a lot of different random things go in sausage, and apparently there's something called rusk, which is bread that people put in sausage to kind of hold it together. I think it's more common in like British Bangor sausage. I also, being a Texan, of course Tex-Mex is everywhere. I find a lot of the time chorizo, which is sausage adjacent, is not gluten-free. So I just stay away from chorizo as a whole. Some places it will be, some places it won't. I just won't take that risk. So keep your eye out for sausage. I recommend only making it at home instead of ordering it out at a restaurant. Number 13, this is niche, but this is also because I'm a Texas girly. Tex-Mex is everywhere. Mole is on a lot of dishes. If you're not familiar, mole is like a dark kind of chocolatey sauce, kind of spicy chocolatey that's on a lot of Mexican dishes. And that is also usually not gluten-free. It's one of those things, I think they start with a roux, but it's just something that I see in restaurants a lot in my area, so I avoid it altogether. So something to keep in mind there. I don't know if you're vegan or vegetarian, but unfortunately Seton is not usually gluten-free. And it's confusing because it looks a lot like tofu. Tofu is just soy, and it is gluten-free most of the time, unless it's marinated in something, but for some reason Seton has gluten in it, so just be careful if you're ordering like a veggie alternative of something that it is tofu and not Seton. Lastly, tip number 15. This one is just so sneaky, so sneaky. I also can't have eggs, so it doesn't affect me, but if you're out at a restaurant at breakfast, it's so hard because breakfast things seem to be gluten or eggs. Those are the two options, and eggs are not always gluten-free. Safer to get like a sunny side up egg than a scramble, because sometimes a lot of diners and restaurants will actually mix in flour with their scramble or literal pancake batter with their scramble to make it fluffy, to give it that fluff, which is just so disappointing, but it's super common. It's a little trick they do to give you that nice, beautiful, fluffy egg. So if I were you, I would just stay away from scrambled eggs altogether and order sunny side up or something a little more simple. Those are my 15 tips of ways to be mindful of gluten hiding if you're ordering out at a restaurant. I want you to be able to have just like such peace with the food that you're eating, be able to enjoy the experience of dining out. Like I said, it's my favorite activity, and so I will ask all the questions to feel safe. And I would love to do a part 2 of this, whether it's more ways gluten can hide or ways that gluten can hide in labels if you're at the grocery store and trying to find certain things. I'd love to make this a little series, actually use my degree for something for once, because I never use my degree. So let me know in the comments down below if you're one of my celiac friends or gluten allergy friends, if you would like an in-depth video on how gluten hides in labels and in grocery stores. I love y'all. Thank you for joining me for this video. I hope you have the best rest of your day, and I will see you in another video very soon.
So let's take all night, all night, all night, all night, all night. If we're looking for each other,